Hello, hello. Uh, Hello, everybody. Welcome you to the panel about export music export office. Sorry, I'm nervous. I'm doing this for the first time, so yeah. Be nice to me, please. I would like our guests to introduce themselves first, so we know who's on the panel.
My name is Marek Hojda. I'm Polish songwriter, composer with jazz background, but I was involved in pop music when I graduated high school in Katowice. Since 9 years, I'm board member of Polish collecting society ZAiKS, and now I'm trying to run Music Export Poland, the office which will be responsible for exporting Polish music.
Hi everyone, my name is Marton Naray. I'm a Hungarian living in Czech Republic and I represent Czech Republic when we are going abroad. I'm the director of SoundCzech, which is the Czech music office. It's the Czech music export office, but we don't use the export word as such. And I'm also the director of a conference in Prague called Novel Prague.
Hi, my name's Ben. I work at the Biuro Export, which is the French music export office. So I'm like the British guy working in Berlin because I work in the Berlin office for the French. So it's like the anti-Brexit model, essentially. Yeah, we are the oldest export office. We were set up about 25 years ago, and we have a membership system. There's about 500 members, 500 company members in France. So that covers like labels, publishers, booking agents, managers, and they pay into our organisation. So we end up having like a 50% kind of private, 50% public model. Our organisation is essentially an economic organisation. We're here to get revenue coming back into the French music industry. So the most important thing for us is that our members, that any music that we work with is signed to a label or a publisher in France or a booking agent in France. So it doesn't matter about nationality, it doesn't matter about language or anything like that. It's purely an economic thing, so driving the French music industry through sales abroad. I think at the moment we have an annual budget of about 6 million euros. A very large part of that is driven through back to funding, so helping bands to tour, helping bands to cover like radio plugins in America, whatever, it depends really on the project. And then the rest of the part of the budget really goes towards like financing kind of day-to-day stuff, consulting, all that kind of thing.
Okay, Marton and Marek, please, could you tell us also who's paying for your offices?
You know, the idea of appointing Polish Music Export Office came from Ministry of Culture. Why? You know, in Poland we have, I think, 7 entities whose aim is exporting music. But those entities, for those entities, export music is not the main activity. For example, Frederick Chopin Institute should export Frederick Chopin music, but the main goal for them is just promoting and protecting heritage of Frederick Chopin. For example, Adam Mickiewicz Institute, which is represented by Iga, is responsible for promoting Polish culture as a whole. So not only music, but also audiovisual sector, like sculptures, paintings, and so. Music is just part of activity of Adam Mickiewicz Institute. And export is just small part of music activity. So there was Ministry of Culture thought that there is a need to appoint special body who will be in charge of increasing music export, which is, frankly saying, very weak in Poland because we don't have any pop star known worldwide. We are quite good in niche like progressive rock, like jazz music, like death metal. But anyway, Polish export in terms of music is very weak, and I think it will be easy to improve it.
Hopefully. And Marton, how about you?
Oh, it's really joyful to have some reference points, so I can like point at Ben or at Marek. Yeah, I call myself a migrant as a it's good as a Hungarian working and living in the Czech Republic. But much like the Adam Mickiewicz Institute, the SoundCzech is below the Arts and Theatre Institute of Czech Republic, which has basically the same activities to promote Czech culture abroad, from performing arts to dance to literature and so on. And oh, it's a really, really long story because I used to be one of the founding members of the Hungarian Music Export Office ages ago. So, and it took about 10 years in Czech Republic because around 2005 we had the Czech delegation coming to the Hungarian Music Export Office and asking about like, okay, how to start the Czech Music Office and Czech Music Export Office at that time. And we were giving, of course, some different ideas, and actually the information needed like, let's say 8 years to go through. There were several different organizations of people or pioneers that were trying to convince the stakeholders to have something like an export office, and by the end, the Arts and Theatre Institute, the director of the Arts and Theatre Institute, she was the flag holder basically to go in and to convince the Culture Ministry. I'm speaking about this because in 2015, late 15, supporting Czech music culture international exposure got in the national cultural policy, which is a good point always when you want to point at some real facts, and we want to point at that, yes, that's the reason why we have to have actually something like this. At this moment, we are supported by the Culture Ministry. Our budget is approximately, I have to follow the currencies and so on, but it's approximately around 150,000 euros yearly. That actually means for the whole staff to work, to go, to present, to support bands and so on. So that makes us try to be like a small kind of culture terrorist in this sense, to find always the best ways to spend money. But one really joyful thing, and why I'm really happy to be here and to hear that also different points of views, because at the Czech Republic, the Culture Ministry actually asked us to find different resources and different partners in it. And when it gets to music, we are strictly speaking also about economic impacts, not just the culture. It's for me, it's the best topic always, because you have a Penton scale from classical music to actually live music events, and not to mention all the recording industry. So there's a huge benefit. On one part of the scale is that the art and culture and traditional culture that needs preservation and that needs a lot of support to go on, because you're not able to do that really valuable mission unless you are supported. And on the other side of it, you have like huge investments with massive profits the meanwhile. So we are at the kind of momentum time now to try to bridge these two extremities.
Right, thank you for that.
I didn't mention our budget because you know the budget of Czech Music Export Office and French. So you know, we are partly financed by Ministry of Culture because we apply for a program of Ministry of Culture. So it should be the half of our budget, and we count on 400,000 or 500,000 zloty coming from Ministry of Culture, and the rest. So I mean the half of next half will come from Związek Producentów Audio-Video and ZAiKS, because there are two societies who established just 2 weeks ago special foundation, Music Export Poland. So the structure is that we have Council of Foundation. For example, Piotr Kabaj, the previous panelist, he's member of the council. Jan Kubicki from Universal Music Poland. So we have two majors. We have two indies. This is Tomek Grewiński from Kayaks and Beata Reisner, and 4 members from ZAiKS. And the chair of the Council of Foundation is legendary Tomek Lipiński. We have also Miłosz Bębinow, Andrzej Januszko, and Dagmara Gregorowicz from the band Dagadana in the council.
Okay, great. As Marek mentioned, I work for Don't Panic, We're from Poland project. I know it's a controversial name. Some people don't like it. mostly jazz musicians. So I was doing an export work for quite a few years. So I guess we're having a kind of an existential conversation here, you know. And the big question is, does the industry need us at all? So what would be the shortest answer possible? Do they need us?
It depends.
Okay. Marton, what do you think?
Well, I'll carry on just for a moment. I was just thinking, because you kind of, I was looking at the name of the panel. It's quite a funny name for a panel, because obviously
because we all, like,
so
you shouldn't be judging your own case, but here we are.
But I was thinking in terms of like the global music industry. If you look at the top four markets, so you've got USA, Japan, and then Germany, and then the UK. And none of those markets actually have export offices, really. Some of them have ways of funding, but essentially they're very kind of just traditional, like Western markets, or apart from Japan, which is a bit weird. But none of them have really dedicated export offices as such. So yeah, it's just a kind of putting it out there, really. But as you know, France does have an export office, and I think one of the kind of interesting things from the French music industry point of view is that the Bureau Export, so our organisation, is like the only music industry organisation in France where you can find like all of the different parts of the industry coming together. Okay, so you've got like the recorded music industry organisation helping to fund the Bureau Export. You've got like the live music industry organisation working with the Bureau Export. You've got the equivalent of ZAiKS. You've got the SACEM working with the Bureau Export. So really, we're the only point at which a very diverse industry of publishing, live, record label and everything, it all comes together in one point where everybody wants to essentially make more money for the industry, and that's kind of a key thing. Yeah.
So I guess you are needed.
I was looking at also the title, and I thought like, okay, then say yes and then go and have a beer. So
and say no and have some vodka, a lot of it.
Yeah. For instance, that could also be, and then start searching for some other job. But well, the term export, I really don't like the term export actually, because it came from 80s basically, and at that time it was, and it makes sense because the whole term is much more from Biuro, and it was much more to get abroad and bring your bands and show your bands. But when it comes to countries like Czech Republic or smaller, less developed countries, we cannot export unless we make connection, we exchange. So yes, if you do it a good way, and export as a term, it's like a Rubik cube, like every single office that code or that has a function of export office has a completely different base. I mean, like we are financed by the Culture Ministry. We are seeking for partners to have different resources, and meanwhile we are working with an advisory board of Czech music professionals to really have all the decision in sync with the actual market, what is happening. And when it's a good example that the biggest players of music industry doesn't have export offices because they are already on the level of development that you don't have to. You simply just invest your money in.
I agree with Marton that we need the export office because we are small, weak countries with comparison with United States or UK. I spent last 2 years on working on building structure of Music Export Poland. I spent those years on making business plan and everything. So if I wouldn't be convinced that Music Export Office is needed, I wouldn't be here.
Obviously, right. Okay, so we established that we are indeed needed by the industry most of the time. And how do you decide what to spend your money on? Like what the industry needs, to get help from you with?
Well, let me give you some examples, because I think everything we're talking about can get a bit abstract, And so I think like on a day-to-day basis, any member of our organisation can call me, apart from at the weekend, and say, like I'm looking for a distribution deal in Germany or in Austria and Switzerland or in Poland, or I'm looking for a PR for our new album campaign, that kind of thing. So it's like just kind of basic kind of advice, consulting, that kind of thing. But then the industry can also tap into financing. So if they have a band which is coming to spring break, for example, they can apply to cover up to 50% of their traveling costs or that kind of thing. And so how do we decide whether the band deserves to have the money? Okay, that's the question. So what happens is that it's kind of boring thing. You fill in some papers. So the record label, the French record label, or the French booker or whatever, fills in some papers, sends it to our Paris office, and then like 4 or 5 times a year, the Paris office meets with a big mix of the music industry from France, and they all sit around a big table, and they're supposed to have read all of the applications beforehand. Sometimes they haven't, and they sit there and they vote. So it's quite simple. So if I'm a small indie and I'm sitting around the table and my project's on the table, okay, I can't vote. I have to leave the room while everybody talks about the project, and they say, oh, Spring Break Poznan, this is a great festival, guys. You get loads of business out of it. It's really good. We're really pleased that that the band's gone, and I'll write a little report as well. I'll say, Lysistrata came and they played at Mescalina in town. It was like a really great show, and so then they vote and then they get the cash. So on that side of things, it's quite a democratic, vote-based, peer-reviewed kind of situation, So like everybody in the industry is taking responsibility for the other people's projects. And also, what's quite nice is that they get a real vision on like who's doing what. So you might be a major, but you might be a major label, but you might not really know what's going on with some of these other bands. But they think, oh wow, these guys are going to Poland at the moment. They seem to be doing some really good stuff. They're working a lot with national radio. Like it's just gives everybody a bit more visibility on the whole of the kind of mission and program and everything. So yeah, that's how we decide centrally in Paris as to how to get money out and how we choose which artists we work with. But then locally, so we have all these offices around the world. We're quite lucky with that. Like in the Berlin office, for example, then we help. I suppose we act as a kind of filter almost, because we've got this kind of experience over quite a few years of like what kind of bands work in Germany, what we hope to develop our knowledge of the Polish market as well, so which kind of bands might work in Poland. And so we kind of help to push those artists in a kind of sensitive way towards local partners who we think might be well adapted to that kind of project.
Well, it's always a good question, who's choosing? That's the first question immediately asked. We are 1 year old, that I have to state at this moment.
Quite an interesting situation, because we have the oldest export office and the youngest one here, and the baby export office.
The richest, and maybe...
And the oldest and the richest, yeah.
So actually, well, we have an advisory board of Czech professionals, but also when it gets to export, and this, the reason, once again, not to use for us is that there are no real programs for developing Czech music scene locally, domestically in Czech Republic either. So at this moment we are actually fighting, not fighting, but like, let's say dealing on several different fronts, meaning on education, on lobbying, like doing a market research to have actually real data to convince stakeholders to invest in music as such, and then we have to also merge kind of the viewpoints of a trade viewpoint, how music as such generates profit for a country, plus at the cultural viewpoint that is actually the exposure of Czech culture, and it's a diplomatic, and it's the best way actually. That's what we are actually doing. So who's choosing? The board is choosing. We are actually at this moment loading the information on the website. It's quite difficult at this time because I wanted to add as well, export offices are a reference point to a country. I mean, you as an international professional can contact us when you're searching for someone, label, bands, festival deals, so on. And that's
so you're basically helping with like import as well, right?
Both. That's why.
So
we had like a really stupid idea, but it was not.
So some people say that Prague is a horrible place to play, but if you want to change your mind about that, you can contact Marton.
Yeah, contact. Horrible place to play.
Well, yeah, that's.
I heard. I don't know. I'm a Hungarian, and I'm actually quite pleased to see how vivid the Czech scene is. And I'm also looking at the market because I used to do my clubs. I'm doing Steel Festival. So if I go to a country, even here, I'm looking around and checking out. Okay, what's the development of a venue? How many venues you have in Poland? What this city would be able to do when this event is not there? And that's really interesting. I mean, the Czech scene is absolutely full, and Prague is crazy full. So if someone had a problem of that's you have to know that the scene is absolutely full. The people are a bit spoiled, I have to tell, because you can get so many good stuff. So that's simply. But when it gets to programs, the advisory board decides. But then, if you are as a band, you apply to a showcase festival, and your band is not on at our list of bands, which we still upload. So, just to add, for the negative comments, we still support because it's not us who has to choose the bands. It's actually the festival, the showcase event has to choose the bands, and we do not have actually budget to support complete tours or going to festivals. So we had to narrow down the budget, and now we have a tour focus on Austria next year, and just food for thought. We have a tour focus for Poland, and we have exact projects like funds, like exchange funds that is actually helps musicians to get to the next level, plus educational sessions, plus lobbying for the stakeholders. So several fronts we have to constantly be on.
Complex. Okay, what about the Polish
So,
export office?
Music Export Poland will not support financially Polish artists for two reasons.
You know.
One is that we don't have so big budget, and the second that while we build strategy, we didn't want to replace other entities' activity, like for example your activity as Adam Mickiewicz Institute. Polish artists can apply for financial support to Adam Mickiewicz Institute.
We still hope to be able to help you.
So we didn't want to replace your activity because the bands would go to your office, to our office. It will be messy. But for example, you don't have in your scope education activity.
Well, we do, but not as much.
Yeah, but not so much. That's why we built our strategy on making really educational part will be very huge in our activity. We will be open for everybody to help in terms of export activity, but not financial help. For example, we will build comprehensive database when you will have all the places where you can play gigs, record labels. Then our database will be connected with other databases from other music export offices. We are working together on kind of organization which calls EMI, European Music Export Exchange, and it consists 23 countries from Europe.
Yes.
Yeah, and we
have the new ones.
we will be together build comprehensive database. So, for example, if you Polish artists would like to see clubs in Belgium or in Czech Republic, you can search in this huge comprehensive database. We will try to connect people by organizing songwriting camps, for example. That will be many activities, but not financial support. But if someone comes to our office and will claim that a band needs financial support, we can help in the way that we can show that there is Adam Mickiewicz Institute. You can apply there. ZAiKS has special funds, Fundusz Popierania Twórczości. We can show where you can find the money. Program of Ministry of Culture, for example. We can even help in filling the application. There will be new program coming from the European Commission called Music Moves Europe, and this program will be focused mainly on music sector. So this will be our activity. We can afford to employ just 3 people in the office, so don't expect much from us, but we will try to fill the gaps in the whole system of exporting music.
You did this report about Polish industry regarding export mostly, right?
Yeah, the report.
Did you manage to find out what are those needs?
Yeah, because our activity is relied on,
Where the
this
gaps are.
report. Yes, the report will be published maybe next week. So I encourage you
Great.
to visit our website, musicexportpoland.org. The report will be published. Is made by scientist from University of Łódź, Patryk Gałuszka. He's kind of expert on Polish music industry. So I encourage you to read this report.
Did you manage to find out what the gaps are? Where the what the industry needs?
For example, education activity is.
So it actually showed in that.
Yeah, for example, yeah. Of course, we always need money. This is financial gap as well, of course.
What do you mean by education? Do you mean, exactly?
We would like to make workshops as well for both for artists and managers to show them different types of markets. For example, we will invite some experts from different countries. We will invite and pay for the trip, for example, to some managers from abroad coming to some Polish festivals like Just Juniors or maybe Tauron Nowa Muzyka, because it's cheaper to take some guys from United States or from England and showing them, for example, 20 or 30 bands that play on Tauron Nowa Muzyka than to put those 20 bands to the United States. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so another question is about showcase festivals, because usually it's quite a big part of Music Export Office's activities. What do you think about showcase festivals? Isn't it like a kind of a purgatory for bands? They get stuck in the showcase circle where they don't earn money, but they, go and nothing comes out of it, ever, or rarely.
Well, you can look at it this way as well, of course. But firstly, you cannot go really back to a showcase event where you've been. So we had like different. We do also education workshop. One of the workshop was exactly about showcase festivals and festivals. And when it gets to showcase festivals, it starts with education, I think, because to add to that point of education in Czech Republic, we might also need lifestyle advertisement, like come to be a manager, because we are really lack of managers. So we need to have the people who comes with sparkling eye to get to the next level, and that's a situation. But then when we have a manager, you as a band has to build a kind of a strategy in which you have to know which showcase festival should be the best for your band at that moment. We have so many stories, especially that we focus a lot on this now because Slovakia and Czech Republic is the focus country at Eurosonic next year. That's basically, I'm not saying once in a lifetime chance, but it's really rare that this volume exposure on a country can happen. So we really think of which way to, on one hand, show the industry how good and strong it is, and on the other hand, try to help the Czech scene to be prepared for that level of showcase even, because it's different if you go to, for instance, you go to Bush, you go to Nova Prague, you go to Waves Vienna, you have different possibilities to connect to different level, and you have to find out if I'm going to do a showcase at Waves Vienna, it might make sense to have an agent on that territory or try to find some smaller venues, but it's the different story then ahead of your life. Like, I don't want to put like this really bad, marketing terms of like a product life term.
Oh,
but I used to be a musician. I used to have a band, and it's a really good example because we didn't have anything like that. It was like a bunch of potheads running around, and then being really surprised that people suddenly showed up at the concerts, and then we were in trouble. Like, okay, what's the next step? Is 600 people coming every time? So what to do? And we didn't have the proper strategy. Even the meanwhile, I was working for a big festival, but we didn't have that. And I see that this is exactly where we lost the possibility, to step to the next level. So you have to really dig in. Most of the people I know who had problem with showcase festivals in Czech Republic are the ones who never really did their proper homework before the showcase festival. They went there, they didn't have any idea who to meet, what they want to do there, and then they went home. don't go to a showcase festival if you just want to play a gig. Do not do it. Stay home, play with Nintendo, whatever. But don't go to showcase festival. Go to showcase festival when you actually want to do something and want to step from one to the other. And it's not a business because it's community, so you speak to people and try to move things ahead a bit.
So I guess sometimes it's worth it to just send the manager.
Yeah, I think it depends. As you were saying, it depends on the band. It depends on which territory you're going to. Why are you going? Like when we work with like Reeperbahn Festival with Eurosonic or here, it's always like, why are we going? Usually we try and send bands that are missing like one piece of the puzzle. So maybe they've got a distribution sorted, maybe they've got the PR sorted, but they need a booking agent like fast. You know, to pick up one quite quickly. So it can be like the perfect platform to get them to play. Like here at Spring Break, like with the 3 bands that Tomek was working on, like all 3 of them have come out of this festival with like something solid behind it. It might be some live interest, radio interest, potential license deal interest. So we're super happy with that result. I think one of the things I'm usually pretty disappointed with is that like the French delegates don't like move as much as I want them to. You know, like what I can't understand is why would you send a band to a festival and then not come yourself? Like what you just can't do any serious follow-up, and I can't do follow-up for 25 bands in Groningen. You know, it's not going to happen. So
does it actually happen? That
yeah, it happens a lot. It happens loads.
Like
out of the three bands that came to this one, I think one of them. Well, they kind of came with people, but you know, you really think it's an investment, right? You're sending a band to a different country, and it's like the perfect opportunity to meet a ton of people around the project, make some new contacts, convince people about it, meet the local media and everything. And yeah, they just kind of it's like I don't think there's a single French. There's probably like 1 or 2 French delegates this year here. It's absolutely insane. And like we try and push them. Like we say, right, you know, if you can get you a free, you know, Tomek might get you a pass if you ask nicely, and we'll even cover their travel costs. So for the French professional, if they want to come here, we'll cover like up to 50% of their hotel, out of their flight. So you know, aside from like going to their house and like holding their hand all the way to Poznan, it's like, you know, it's difficult to get people to come. But in general, yeah, the showcase festivals. I mean, there are. I think we get fatigued by the whole thing, right? Because there are just so many. So it's like you have to just throughout the year choose which ones you want to be involved with, work out which ones are good. Don't feel forced to repeat the exercise, like just for the sake of it. You know, like if you feel like this year Tallinn wasn't super hot, then you're like, well, we need to reassess. We shouldn't just repeat stuff for the sake of repeating, which can be quite a dangerous thing. So yeah, we have like a focus at Reeperbahn this year, and you know that's going to be a big project for us. You know, we've got bands playing at the Philharmonie, like Ibei, Her, some really nice projects, and then we'll probably have like 35, 40 bands playing, have loads of networking things. But you know, we have to work out after that. You know, was it really worth it? You know, and that's something which can be a little bit difficult to monitor. We always monitor. Like at the moment, I'm working with my colleagues back to like 2014. We're looking at all the bands that were playing showcases in 2014. What, you know, every 6 months, every 12 months, every 18 months, we like do a recap, like what happened. You know, what's happening now with the project outside, because
how are you doing that?
Well, the thing is, like straight after the event, like okay, 2 or 3 people might be interested, but it's not about straight after the event. You know, like you meet people. It can take 6 months. It can take 3 or 4 years. You know, depending on who you've met, and maybe you've got nothing in common, or maybe at the moment that you meet, but maybe a bit further down the line you can get some work done. So that's why every like 6 months essentially we reassess. We look back at all of the bands that have played, and sometimes you think, okay, well, you can see it from both sides. You can see the French bands and the French professionals that have worked well. They've created a story about the project and followed up, and then you can see the ones that have, you know, they've said, Ben, we really want to play The Great Escape. We really want to play The Great Escape, and then they go and like nobody comes, nothing happens. It's like, what the, you know, why did you do that?
How do you get the feedback from managers?
Well, we know what's going on all the time because we can keep an eye on.
You talk to them, or you request some kind of report?
Yeah, we talk to them. We talk to their local partners. So if they started working with a local partner in Germany, then we can go back to the local partner in Germany and say, so how's it been going over the last few months? Are you guys working properly together? We also ask for the like sales figures from the French companies as well. So we get all of their export figures. We go through the SACEM as well, so we find out exactly the amount of revenue that's coming from the industry as a whole. So yeah, we got some ways of finding out kind of who's doing what, you know, is it working, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and Marek, you mentioned that you
It's-
have some idea of how to
It's hard
monitor
to add
effect.
anything else what my colleagues already said, but in my opinion, maybe there are too many showcases festival, because now I'm coming back from Germany when in the same time there is Jazz Ahead showcase festival.
Actually, it's a different one.
Yeah, it's different, but
Just
anyway,
jazz.
there is. It happens that in the same time there are two or more showcases. But coming back from Jazz Ahead, it was perfect organized for Polish bands, because Jazz Ahead is focused on Poland this year. The Adam Mickiewicz Institute perfectly organized the event for a Polish band, and I attended in 8 showcases before yesterday, and the Polish jazz bands are really amazing, and I'm sure that it will bring some success story after these showcases. I was impressed after Atom String Quartet, for example, concert, or Monika Bożym. So, if you play great music and you get some kind of support from Jazz Ahead, from institution like Adam Mickiewicz Institute, it can be really successful. But the key is to choose the right showcase festival.
I just wanted to add one short thing. This weekend, actually, as you said, also SoundCzech is at Jazz Ahead as well. And how you measure the success or this, I mean, we are at the first year, so we are on the, like, we are very fresh. So I think we'll see it in a year or two, what the interest there. But we have 10 Czech professionals at Jazz Ahead and over 10 here. That means that the interest of professionals going to visit these events are actually raising. So it's a really nice way to look at it. And just to add one more thing, I much more prefer to have actually more professionals than to have more bands. I mean, it would have been good to have like a band maybe Czech, but I'm fine with having professionals, because that's actually, it can improve much better. You can do much better if you do the job. And so we focus a lot on supporting professionals. So out of 6 events this month, just 3 events had Czech bands actually showcasing, another 3 had basically delegation going there, and we are organizing a networking session and trying
This
to
is a
make...
crazy scale. 6 events only, like this month, right?
Yeah, but that's a special month.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. It's an absolute
Tell me
nightmare
about it.
month for us, but it's good. And then we get the feedbacks the same way. We actually support the professionals and we ask about the feedbacks, and also we discuss. We ask simply like, okay, how can we help? How can we connect? It's a relatively small scene, so it can go simply through communication, and it's a manual thing in that way.
Okay. Ben?
I know that I said earlier that like there are too many showcase festivals. Well, we decided to make our own showcase festival this year for the
All
first
right.
time. Yeah.
One more.
Just to add, just one more. You know, if everybody else does it, we should do our own, right? So, but it was kind of actually a reaction to all of the other showcase events, right? Because we figured that there are just in France, like there are a couple, but they're pretty French or French focused, and I don't know. We started to notice that the smaller showcase events were actually the ones where people were getting more work done. So when I say small, I just meant like small format, really. So not too many delegates, but like high quality delegates. And so this year, for the first time in February, we had completely our own event organised by Biuro, and we had like 3 days of meetings for our members. So like our 500 members could meet all of these kind of really top quality delegates from all around the world. So we brought people in from the US, from Korea, from Japan, and then from Europe. A lot cheaper from Europe, and and organised lots of meetings for them. We had like lunch together, dinner together, and then in the afternoons we had showcases in a really cool little venue just underneath our office in Paris. And that was a really enjoyable event, just because it was very small format, and so everybody got to spend a lot of time together. And it was, I think, it was good for the delegates as well, because they were networking like intensely together amongst themselves. So we've had absolutely tons of great feedback from that as well. So yeah, I think small formats can also be really, really nice.
Yeah, I believe so too.
Because I know you've been supporting Mama Festival in Paris, so I want to ask you, why did you, if you can tell, why did you decide to create your own festival rather than still doing the Mama thing? Because it seems similar. I went to Mama a few years ago, and it was also in small venues, also networking. It seems similar to the event you were just talking about. So I'm curious, why did you decide to do something different?
Sure. Is this being recorded? This sort
Yeah.
of thing. Okay.
Turn the camera off.
We are on TV.
Yeah, it's a slightly tricky question, obviously, because we're part of the same music industry and everything, and they have been a partner of ours. The festival has been a partner of ours for a long time. I would definitely recommend going to Mama event in Paris in October. So it's a very strong festival. It's in Paris, so you meet Paris. The French music industry is very Paris-centric, right? Everybody's there, so it's a great opportunity to see people and that kind of stuff. Afterwards, the feedback that we were getting from the professionals that we were taking out to Paris, because we part of our mission is that we bring professionals from all over the world to France to these different festivals and so on. So we work with like Pitchfork Festival in Paris, with Rock en Seine, with Transmusicales, with jazz festivals and so on. And yeah, we were noticing that people the foreign delegates were saying about Mama was that they weren't really picking up any bands. Like the bands were too young, essentially, that were on stage. Like they were bands that were being showcased more for the French market. So it was like they weren't ready to export in any way. Like they might not have had like a label yet, or they might not have had a booking agent in France, right? So we're talking about French bands that didn't have a label or a booking agent or a manager. And like I can't bring Tomek to Paris to see bands that don't have any infrastructure in France. I mean, it doesn't really make too much sense. I mean, it's not all the bands were like that, but there were a pretty high amount of bands were in that situation. So we thought, yeah, maybe it's just time that we kind of like rejig it a bit and just see what other opportunities there are there. The other really big music industry event in France is called Canton de Bourges, which is in April, and it's next week actually, I think, yeah. And that's a really interesting festival, but it's like super French focused. So like there are barely any international delegates. Everything's in French all the time. Is it 2.5 hours south of Paris? It's like a pain in the ass to get to. So and it's a huge investment to get a foreign professional out to that festival. So between Mama and Bourges, we were like, we just need to try something else, see what's going to happen. And the bands that we were choosing were bands that already had like really strong kind of outlook, strong setup in France, but that hadn't been showcased yet at Eurosonic or at Reeperbahn and so on. So just giving people a little bit of a avant-premiere kind of like pre experience of seeing these bands and meeting their teams and everything. So yeah.
I guess we can move to questions. Like Tomek started with one, so yeah. Anybody's got any questions for our guests? No.
Everything is clear.
Actually, I've got one more. Moving to the real world, like from showcase festivals to regular festivals and touring. Don't you think that activity of music export offices and their money can spoil the market? Like, if you pay for a band to play regular festival, the festival would never pay for any band from your country, knowing that you have the money to support the band, or the clubs won't pay them.
It actually happened before, and I keep repeating in many cases. There used to be a program, CTAP program at the Eurosonic Norderslag, and it's not about to criticize the CTAP as such, but it was basically a program for Central Eastern European scene for bands to be picked up by European festivals, and then the festivals got support. And then the next years, of course, the festival didn't invite back the same bands because it was well, they could
band
choose.
Didn't have any foundation, right? They
Yeah.
didn't tour.
So that was for me a
buy.
typical example that was a good idea, but there was no research before done how to make it actually long lasting. The effects were not. But I think there are like a carnival youth that was involved. Gunnar, Gunnar's here. Oh, hi. Carnival Youth was one of the band, and I think Birth of Joy was the other. But Birth of Joy is not even CTAP; it's ETAP. It's a Dutch band actually. But in in terms, if you are touring already, if you're there on in the club circuit, and then you get an opportunity like that, then it's the time when you can actually capitalize on this particular possibility. When you go to Eurosonic, and that's also what we have within ourselves as well, when we discuss, the band really has to have already a proper development at the stage. And yes, export offices did spoil the market. I mean, I used to do the Fetela Music. It's a European Music Day in Hungary as a coordinator, and obviously I every single time went to beg money from all the institutes and all. So, and then the same money couldn't be paid for the same bands in my club immediately. So it was a drop. We didn't get the bands that were playing because they just couldn't make it financially. So it can ruin, but we are actually opposing the idea of supporting entirely. And I think the real and the proper role for export offices is to help the bands to get to the level when they are doing it themselves, and then when they are doing it themselves, then add an extra, boost for them and connect them with more, and then that's the proper way to help. Of course, we are searching for money, as Marek said, so money is never enough. We would love to support more, but to support bands to go to general festivals, I think it's not really a good idea.
Yeah, I agree with Marton. For example, we can compare Polish live market, which is destroyed by free gigs, free for public, like Dni Miasta, Półtuska, czy tam Dni Pszczyny. The bands are playing for free, and then it's hard to sell.
Public money, usually.
Yeah, for public money, they get their revenues from the cities. But then nobody wants to pay for the tickets when those bands would like to sell live gigs. So it's similar situation that you mentioned. That I agree with Marton that we should support the bands for showcases, but we should not support financially artists for big gigs, big festivals.
I think there's like a bit of a mix, really. I mean, we don't support. We never pay an independent fest. We never give money to like a festival in Germany, like an independent festival like Hojda or something like that. We never say like, oh, here's €2,000, book some French bands, because that just creates a false economy completely for everybody. So I think we all agree on that. But you have to remember that our artists can get funding to go to those shows anyway. So it's like that's part of our model. We help to kind of cover their risks of like their financial risk of like touring and so on. So I think that's fine. I had an experience in London where when I was working there for the Bureau Eksportu in the London office, we worked a lot with London Jazz Festival, which is like a really key portal for jazz in the UK. And I think I can say this because it was quite a long time ago now. But like the director of our office at the time was basically just like chucking money at the festival, trying to get as many French bands booked as possible, because it was like, it's kind of, look, we've got 15 bands playing, which is great. You had 15 bands playing, but then when the money dries up, or if you don't want to do it like that, then you get no French bands because the festival just like expects you to shell out money. So it's just it's a ridiculous situation, really. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Some questions up here.
Hi guys, my name is Lucas, and I've got a question for you concerning money, because it seems there's, with a lot of showcase festivals and a lot of delegates and professionals traveling back and forth, how do you balance the money and not spend over too much on people like journalists and managers and other people traveling and having basically a fun time in other cities, and with that money being taken from the bands in a way? How do you strike even the balance between funding the professionals and the bands themselves? And don't you feel sometimes that with too many professionals traveling all around talking and, I don't know, making friends and having a good time, doesn't it take away the focus from the bands themselves in a way, and that money could be spent on actually helping a band to play instead of sending 5 professionals, sending 1 band?
I don't think that journalists are paid by music export offices. There, journalists are paid by their magazines.
You'd be surprised.
This is one point.
You would be surprised, sir.
We are actually having open like calls for professionals, and then we have to select the professionals going to different event according to the event profiles and their own activity. And if you do that good, the effect multiplies. Than if you have just 1 band. And once again, we have 1 band. The optimum scenario, the best would be if that band is already prepared and so on. And to get to that level, we have to have a stronger scene. And the way to have a stronger scene is to get exposure to these kind of events, to introduce what is required, what is needed. I mean, for Czech Republic, it's a 1-year-old office. So what we are actually doing, it's not an aim for the next years on, that to spend the April running like a poison mice. It's simply that we have to go to different events and select the ones that were actually useful and effective for the professionals, and then go and then try to lobby for having a band there. Then at that time we see that who are there, which are the delegates, are there labels, are there actually live booking agents. So then we can basically, as I see, most of the offices are doing a lots of pilot projects and trying to find the best way to crack the market. You know, we have this European Music Exporters Exchange, which is a really good platform to simply share ideas, like what worked for whom on which market. Because I don't think that anyone can state that, oh yeah, I know the solution, that's the way you go to here and there, because it's really like case by case thing. It's sometimes, yes, you might be right, sometimes it might happen that instead of 5 professionals, but that's the reason we have to see and have to think on a longer term to get the proper feedbacks and constantly communicate with all the partners.
All right. Yeah. Just I think that I get the question. I totally understand your question. I really do. I think like I think it really depends. I think we all have quite different answers because we've got quite different setups. I think from my point of view, like we have quite a restrained budget for bringing like foreign professionals to France. But I think I hope that we don't actually pay for journalists to come to France. I know that like there are 1 or 2 exceptions you included, but that was because you were talking on a panel, so it was a little bit different. But normally, if it's like a media, then we ask the festival to cover that cost because it's not really our job. But bringing professionals out, like we have like a restrained, quite a small budget for that, but it's usually it has a really strong impact. You know, we'd hope. I mean, we'd hope that the professional that goes to France is going to pick up at least 1 or 2 bands to work with, and that they make these kind of long-term contacts. You know, it's a really important part, the kind of networking part. I know it looks like everybody's like traveling around, you know, like going to all these receptions and stuff, and that is I suppose that is a natural part of it. But it's I think it's really it is like very, very key for us to get you guys out to France to check out what's going on, because the French aren't coming out, so we need to bring everybody there.
My name is Daga. I'm from Daga Dama Band. I have a question to you, Ben. I'm really wondering about the size of the festival that you're gonna make, the showcase festival, because we mentioned that it's better to play on smaller showcases. So, are you trying to make a small showcase, or you have a different idea?
Yeah, the one that we organised was like tiny. It was tiny. It was like super tiny. Like, so we rented out a venue called Supersonic, which is near Bastille in Paris. It's a really nice venue, and it's really, really small. It can only fit about 150 people in it, I think. And we rented it out for the afternoon on 2 days, and we had 4 bands on each day. So it's 8 bands in total, right, which is nothing. But they would only play like 20-minute sets, 25-minute sets, like really, really short. And the kind of 35 international delegates that we had were in the room. Our team was in the room. We invited a few, obviously like the band like the band's kind of entourage was there as well. So we had this. It was really cool. Like, we had a whole really nice little venue to ourselves, open bar, of course, you know, and like from about 2 in the afternoon. It was great. You know, it was like we knew that the quality of the bands would be really, really high. The delegates who were there were like super like pleased to be in like a really nice venue that wasn't packed, and like it was just kind of night. Everybody was comfortable, good conditions, all the professionals there. And so before each band played, somebody from the team would stand up and say, right, this is Kiddy Smile, you know, he's doing this at the moment, he's got an album coming out next year, at the moment he's got really great feedback from the States, blah, 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 he's modelling this, and it would be just like really efficient, basically, you know. It wasn't like 40 bands over one evening, you know, where everybody's running around, getting lost, going for dinner, having a pizza, you know. It's just like, we like managed to get everybody in the room, make sure everybody sees it, get the feedback, all that kind of stuff, and so yeah, it was like super small and a bit exclusive, but at the same time we could control what was happening. It was like our own project basically. So yeah, it was efficient.
I think we are running out of time. Any other questions? Anything you guys want to say to wrap it up?
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about in the shower was like that. Essentially, the different offices, different export offices, they're so varied. I mean, like I feel very, very fortunate that ours is quite structured. We've been around for a long time, but at the same, we are like a big cruise ship. You know, like if we want to change something small, it takes ages. Lots of people talking about it. You guys are a lot more agile, maybe because you're younger companies, small organisations rather smaller. You can look at our organisation and say, oh, that's really good, that bit, or that bit's a bit weird and a bit French. We don't want to do that, and then, you know, you can pick and choose how you see the future related to your industries, which is really, really cool. And I also was thinking that, you know, like I think for countries which have got a less established music industry, I think that the role of I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the role of your organisations is you're almost working on like as a manager sometimes, because like some of the bands you're working with might not have any like a really strong setup yet, I mean, it might not be your goal to get them signed in Czech Republic, but maybe your goal is for them to have like a record deal with like a major in the States at some point. I don't know. So like, I think your role versus my role is quite different really, because I'm constantly representing the French industry, and it's they're already like we won't work with them unless they're at a certain level already, you know, like it's just not going to make any sense. Whereas for like my colleagues in Luxembourg, for example, like, you know, they're basically helping them from the bottom up, you know, right from the guy who's a 17-year-old producer in his bedroom and who doesn't know what the fuck's going on, like he needs some help and stuff. So I think there's quite a lot of diversity.
Just a thing to add there, actually, it's also, one thing is that we would love to support more tours, but let's see how the budget will rise, and then we could be able to do that. With smaller countries, it's not just simply the bands, because if we go to any events for SoundCzech, it's really good that we have a delegation of actually promoters, venues, and so on, because that shows a lot what the country has to offer, actually, in this sense. And that's how we can actually lure in booking agents and so on. For instance, obviously, when you do like showcasing events, we are working, as Novel Prague is really close to, it is actually under Amoeba production that has Rock for People Festival and other festivals in Czech Republic. And Rock for People works with booking agencies. So when actually we have the connection to major agencies, so we can actually suggest them to have some of the new bands from their agency. So that's actually the possibility. So we can pitch the local artists, the Czech artists, to them, and we're actually keeping the same small profile, tiny bit space, try to keep everything small and cozy in order to get the communication going. But I think we also misunderstood a bit the question, because about like, you know, supporting professionals is meaning also both ways, like supporting like French or Polish or Czech professionals to go abroad, that we do, and the other is supporting events that actually SoundCzech does as well, with Novel Prague, with Crossroads, Czech Music Crossroads, and with checking to support events to be able to invite international professionals, because that's it's true. That's the best way to expose local bands at their own home environment, where you can really show the most of what you had, and you didn't travel 16 hours in a bus that's constantly breaking down and so on.
I actually have a question for you. You mentioned this educational part of your job. I wanted to ask you how you want to help young people to start working. Is this the idea, to help young people start to work in a music industry? And
You mean young people as artists or managers? Because
yeah, you mentioned managers, but you know, in Poland there is this thought that the music industry is like a dreamland for everyone, and everybody wants to be here.
Yes.
So, what kind of environment you'll be trying to create for the people?
We will make different type of workshops for artists, for managers. If one will be interested in making career in music business, you know, he or she can attend the workshops, but then, you know, he or she will have to work in this business. It's hard to say for now, you know, to encourage young people, you know.
Okay, can I turn this a little bit into the conversation? Just a short one. Tomek, can I turn this in the conversation for a bit, please?
Do we have like 5 more minutes?
5 minutes? 3 minutes? Okay. I'm working with festivals in Poland, and last year I was asked to do like mentoring classes with the students at the Jagiellonian University in Krakow. I was doing this for 4 months. And their task was, their students, the first year, they were, at the end of the year, they have to create a festival. Students of the first year, they have no idea how to work with the press, how to book the artist, how to book the gig, blah, 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 blah. They had to do everything from the scrap. So my task was to go there and just tell them how it's going to be happening, and just to show them the direction. And after this 4 months, they've done a really great festival, found like a DIY venue in Krakow, book a punk band, whatever. I told them how to get in touch with the media to promote this thing. And after this 4 months, I found like, that was a group of 35 people, and everybody was responsible for different tasks. But among all those students, I found like 3 people that were really into it, because in the time that the project was on, they were like, oh my God, we have to do this. This is too much work, you know. I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to do this. And that was, for me, it was really a clear sign that, you know, not everyone is dedicated to that job, because it's not only fun, you actually have to work. And after this, I invited one girl to work with me on the festival, and she told me at the end that for this part, for 4 months and working with the festival, she got no more than for the whole year, you know, studying at the university. So I wanted to ask you, will you approach the young students? Do you plan to work with universities, with the students that are studying, you know, cultural studies, whatever? Or you'll be like open for people to come and ask you for help? Or there'll be like, you know, initiative on your side?
You know, we will build a database of people who are interested in Music Export Office. So you have to log in to be our partner, to use our website and our database. So we will send newsletter, for example, every month or every week. And when we will organize some kind of workshop, it will be announced. So if someone will be interested in this issue, she or he will be invited. But of course, when you have nice initiative in your university, you can find a way how we should cooperate, for example. But you know, we rather want people come to us, because you know it's hard to just catch the people, you know, around the Poland. The newsletter and some kind of announcement within Polish music industry will be the way how we can gather the people.
Do you think that the festivals will be interested in working with the people that you'll be educated? Because, you know, this is like very, like, people working on the festivals are busy people. They have a lot of in their minds. And sending like a person to help them needs some time to get prepare this person for a certain job.
You know, we want to work with music festivals in organizing some kind of workshops. I made it in the past as a board member of ZAiKS when we organized some workshops concerning copyright, for example. That you're an artist, so you're an author, you are a performer, you are a record label, so you have some rights. So this organization. So we explained the people how copyright works. So similar activity, but concerning export music. This will be an issue for us. Yeah, of course, we will travel across festivals in Poland to encourage people to increase their activity in export.
I hope you will send them on the field.
Yeah, but you know, if you have some more questions concerning music export office in Poland, we will open the right office in July because now the foundation is established. We are waiting for a Ministry of Culture decision, and we start with right office in July. So the website will be open with many information. So just use it and ask through our website. And I'd like to encourage you to export yourself. If you are managers or artists, just make
Come and
it.
sign in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just want to add one thing. It all starts here. So if you work in Poland, you know, get experience in Poland, develop yourself artistically and, you know, in the business field, you will succeed in, you know, another field like abroad as well. So, and cooperation is also very important. And I've noticed we have a problem with that in Poland. But I encourage you to talk to one another, especially managers and people from the industry, and learn from one another. I think it's changing, so it's good news. Okay, and thank you very much for attending. Thank you, our panel, and have fun later.
Thank you, guys. I hope my question wasn't too tricky.
No, no, no. I've been